Welcome to A Funny Thing Happened on the way to the podcast.
I'm Jesse.
I didn't have that energy before the show started, but it's okay. It's for like now.
That's good. So you're performing.
I'm performing.
Yeah. Well, I'm Jesse. This is Eric.
Yeah.
Over there.
First thing that's new of a development.
I was a cop.
You were a cop.
On a Sunday morning sidewalk, I'm wishing.
Yeah.
We did a shoot on the weekend. It was a bit of a fun shoot. It wasn't really a professional shoot. It kind of was like for a TV show concept. Lots of fun. I'm sure we'll have something to say about that maybe in the future. But for now, it went good. I thought it went good. Lots of...
It'll look good.
Complicated cinematography for something that was not necessarily needing such a complicated amount of cinematography.
And for something that was thought to be quite simple.
Yeah, well, a lot of people, when they don't have any background in the film world, do think things are much simpler than they actually are. Something as simple as...
Like everyone in my family,
yeah,
except for my brother-in-law.
Like, this little scene in this show is going to be 3 seconds.
You set up a camera.
Okay.
That's it.
Dress the entire set.
Yeah.
We got to do... Does everybody have their costume on? Okay. Do we have, like, what... Oh, you didn't reset the prop from the last time we tried to do this take? Okay, got to do that again.
Now, sometimes it leads to humor, like when you accidentally realize that there is no screwdriver there. Or with props, sometimes the props don't work the way they're supposed to.
Mm-hmm. We had a prop gun break, yeah, but it didn't matter anyways because it wasn't critical.
And even in Hollywood movies, a lot of blooper reels have props that don't work or misfire or whatnot. And
Marker. Ready, Roy?
Yeah.
Action.
Gun jam.
Action.
Gun doesn't fire.
Cut. And action.
Gun doesn't work.
Cut. And action.
Ah, fuck.
it happens. It happens everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of the pre-production aspect and the lack of some key roles in a film production, this weekend was a pretty good representation of how quickly things go and how much of a kerfuffle it can be. Yeah.
The preparedness and if you're dealing with people that are professional and that they are getting paid and they do this as their job, you might expedite things a little bit, I would hope.
The preparation definitely would be.
You might deal with a bit more drama from people who have certain opinions of themselves or others and they are hard to work with. But we didn't really have that kind of issue, which was nice.
Some of the key... I mean, we weren't recording sound, so anything I say is excluding sound. Some of the key things that we were missing is on set, there's always a script supervisor. That's a very important role, and their role is much more than just watching over the script.
No, it's you talked a lot about how it was timing things.
It's timing, so every script has a time that they're going for, and every take... It's the script supervisor's job to kind of mark where the take began and ended, how long it took, and if there was any issue, like if somebody flubbed a line or if they were improvising on that. So that way, once the film or the dailies go to the director, all the notes are there to know that scene 1, take 1 was good. Scene 1, take 2, somebody flubbed up a line, but they went with it, so it may be a little bit more natural, but it also went 2 minutes too long type thing. And when you're shooting a TV show, or in this case an intro, where we have to do so much in so little time, that could have been crucial, but also even with one, there's too much. Yeah. In a movie, it's still very important, but it's up to the director and editor's interpretation at the end.
Yeah, I'd imagine there's a little bit of flexibility on that kind of stuff. We were trying to sort of hit marks on on the pace of a song, which was interesting too, although that you can play with it a bit in editing to
Yes.
make it come out at the right time, as long as you have enough footage to fill the gaps.
Yes.
Which that remains to be seen, but it should be fun.
Yeah,
trying
the
to fill it together.
rough cuts showed that even
You could do something.
it can be done.
Yeah.
So I'm intrigued. I think we're all gonna go at it differently as far as the editing goes. I don't know what your brother will be doing. I don't know how you would do it, but I know
I don't know how I would do it.
I
It'll be
know
fun.
a rough idea of how I'm going to create my timeline and figure out how it's done.
Should be a lot of fun. Well, anyways, that's what we did.
Yes.
I think.
And I was a cop, as I said. I got
Yeah.
to play a police
And
officer.
I got to play a distracted driver.
Yes, that was fun.
That was fun.
You're a funny, not serious actor.
No, I couldn't be bothered by being on camera, but at the same time, I don't really strive to be either. So, it doesn't really. It's pretty neutral to me.
Somebody asked me to be a cop and then has a full cop
Yeah, he had the whole thing.
costume. Yeah, sure. There's some pictures of me as a cop, so one of them or a few of them will be up on the screen now. It can be fun. The entire process can be fun. Depending on what your end goal is, there can be more stress or less stress. But at the end of the day, no matter what you're doing, it is a creative endeavor. So it is important to remember that you are doing something creative.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to have fun. You have to sometimes lower or set realistic expectations, but
Yeah, that was a little bit of a tricky thing where I think we had to very often lower expectations for things because somebody expected the world for what they've poured a lot of effort into. And
Right.
I'll give it his props were spot on. There was tons and tons of props, lots of fun things to do there. And it was well thought out as far as that
when
goes.
when you're a $200 million action movie, the world is yours. You can literally do whatever you want. If in the next scene you want an explosion to happen, that's done. You get what you want. If you want Scarlett Johansson, you get what you want. In a low budget, any type of any type of production, be it a TV show or a movie, you work with your budget and you know where your constraints are. So, and once you know what you can and can't do, then you're able to maximize everything.
How much of your time in school was focused on the budgeting aspect of everything?
So we learned realistic budgeting based on certain union jobs. They weren't always 100% accurate. They were sometimes rounded, and because there's lots of different variables as far as how much productions can cost. The longer the show's been on the air, the longer it costs. If the budget is over $5 million, everybody gets paid more. Kind of counterintuitive, because once the budget's higher, everybody gets paid more. But if the budget's lower, it's weird. But we learned basic pre-production skills, kind of budgeting out the cost of everybody. The big thing was, it sounds silly to say, but budgeting out scripts. Because you can say, I'm going to pay for a crew of 10 people for 60 days to shoot. What is 60 days? A long time. For 14 days to shoot a independent romantic comedy. But if you don't know how to appropriately kind of budget out the script, you very quickly could realize that your 14 days needs to be 28 because the script is so long or so complicated. So you really have to know your script and know how quickly you'll be able to go through everything. And then after that, when you know that it can be done in 28 days, then you just take the cost of the average worker and kind of budget it out. Decide there are variables. If there's locations that need to be blocked off, then there's police officers that have to be paid to come in and kind of close off the set and whatnot. So it all comes It all comes down to the script to start, basically.
What is the... Is there many
I
situations...
feel like I'm being interviewed here.
Oh, yeah, pretty much. You're the expert on this.
Thank you.
What kind of situation would you be in public and not require a closed set? So, streets, roads, sidewalks.
Very famous scene in Elf, the Will Ferrell movie.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Where he's walking through New York City. He's just made it, and he's walking across the street, and he almost gets hit by a taxi cab.
Yes.
Not a closed set.
Really?
The taxi cab almost hit Will Ferrell.
That's
And
incredible.
that's how they were doing it. They were doing it kind of like person on the street style. There's also a scene in that movie where he runs up to a guy, red tracksuit and a beard. And He's like, Santa!
Yep.
Oh. That guy didn't know. He
Really?
was approached afterwards saying, hey, that was Will Ferrell. This is a
Wanna
Christmas
sign
movie. Do you
this?
want to... Yeah. So stuff like that can be an artistic...
I mean, I think Borat's probably a good example.
Yeah. A lot of low budget movies kind of utilize what they can. Closed set can still have an air of openness. That sounds kind of stupid. If you're shooting in a restaurant, the outside can still be open, which can be annoying because sometimes people peer in and you have to stop. But when you get real people walking back and forth, that can work if you're shooting more than one camera. Once you're shooting one camera, then everything has to be closed down because you need to make sure your extras are walking at the appropriate time. So that way you can edit to the extras as well in the back. Because you never want to have somebody walking behind you, then cut to a wide shot and they're not there.
Yeah.
But most of the time, closed sets are the way to go. Streets,
You have more control over your environment in that case.
yes.
I do see the, obviously, give an example, Borat, you kind of require all open sets in that
Yes.
case.
But the entire shoot would have been different. While it was a movie, it would have been set up like a news or documentary style where basically all documentaries are done open set.
Yeah.
Because that's just the nature of unless there's interviews, but like the general walking around and whatnot. Think of your 6:00 news. Typically, nothing's blocked.
No.
People can walk behind and whatnot.
To the dismay of many news reporters.
Yes, because people are assholes.
Yeah.
I think I mentioned this before, but there's two big things when I was younger that really showed me the size and scale of what goes into a film production, and that's in person. Like I used to like behind the scenes documentaries on movies. I'd eat them up, and I still do like watching them. But I was in Toronto with my aunt, and there's a restaurant, a Chinese restaurant by her house, and it's called Good Food. It's the name of the restaurant. But years ago, it sounds so lore like folk tale-ish, but it's true.
Lori would be a funny word to use.
Lori, yeah, I know. Sounds so folk tale-ish, but years ago, parts of the sign stopped working, and it just ended up being
Food?
GOOF. And now they're known as the Goof.
Oh, no.
And it's worked for them.
I guess.
It's worked very well for them. But they very often are closed for film productions. Some very big movies have been shot there. And I remember walking by, and the front of the restaurant is blocked off with green screens or, a bunch of different lights and whatnot. And then there's just trucks for blocks and blocks, all these white trucks. I'm like, wow, I don't really know what they're doing because you can't see. It's a big production.
Yep.
And then one night, same kind of part of Toronto, they had just a small part of a street blocked off, just one house. And it was 9:00 at night, so it's dark out. And they had this big floodlight, and they turned it on, and it was daytime on that house. And they were shooting, and we're watching them, and they're not really shooting much. There's people like walking across the sidewalk and whatnot. And it was daytime. You could tell that it was going to be a daytime shot, and it looked so real. It ended up being like a pedigree commercial.
Oh.
But
Why do they shoot at night?
less traffic.
That's okay.
That's probably
That's
it.
about it. Okay.
Less traffic.
Worth in the budget to get a really good lighting system, I guess.
I mean, that depends on, I guess, the production company, what they have at their disposal. But
You see that a lot where a lot of amateur filmmakers and some full-fledged films will try to do the day for night shots where it's, I don't like them, but the night for day shot is an interesting thing. I've never really thought about
night
that.
for day, you kind of luck out because if you have the budget, you can cheat.
Yeah.
It's really, if you watch even high budget movies, it takes a really good, either a really well planned shot during the day to make it look like night, or it takes a really good editing or editor to make it look like nighttime. Like there's just
Usually it's not. You can usually tell.
yes, very clearly,
Quite well.
But shooting night for day, if you have enough lights, you can make it work.
Yeah.
I mean, most like actual location sets, so anyone that's filming in a house more often than not shoots, once again, closed set and will work into the night. So very frequently when you see a house in a movie and it happens to not be a set, if there's light coming through the window, it's artificial light. And they probably are shooting at night because you can control the light so much better when there's no other competing light.
Yeah, it's true.
So, it's movie magic.
Photography is interesting in that you don't have to worry so much about external light. Like shooting a house with windows and stuff like that, and as long as there's not just all windows and there's just a reasonable number of them, like most houses have, you can overpower the sun with your strobes because you're dealing with super high shutter speeds, and you have a lot more play with your settings. But I can definitely see with the shutter speeds and other factors that go into using just motion picture, yeah, you'd be much more at the whim of the sunlight outside. So
Other things that people find interesting, and if you watch for it in movies, you'll you'll always see it. When people are outside, normally, I feel like I might have mentioned this before, I don't know. It's hard to say. But normally, the ground is always wet. Not super wet, but damp. Like you can tell the sidewalk is wet. Why is that, Eric?
probably because dew.
Okay, I'm talking more on the technical side of things. Why would they do that?
Glistens, light reflections, looks
Right.
good.
So glistening
I can't really think of the reason, even if it might be
would look
obvious.
better. You can't control the weather when you're filming. It's either going to be a nice day or it's going to be
So
a bad day.
if you get one bad day, you just shoot the whole thing like it's a bad day.
Or you just plan to always make sure that the sidewalk is a little bit damp, even in the sunlight. You watch some movies, sidewalk's always damp because if it rains, it takes a lot less time.
Yes, which is what I'm saying. Like you
Yeah.
get one damn day, you just keep doing it.
So
It's fair. It keeps the consistency if you got to keep shooting the same thing in the same place over and over again.
but if you start looking for that, it will ruin. It'll every time somebody drives away.
There's lots of things like that though. Once somebody mentions like, okay, watch for people hitting their marker, and they
Yep.
look down. You got
Actors
that.
are horrible at that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
but
it is important.
it's
It is
fun.
very important, and it takes a good actor to be able to do it, or a good on-the-fly, like assistant camera person who's handling the focus.
For me, it was like flipping a switch where it was like an instantaneous awareness that what goes into movies. Like there was a time in my life when I didn't think at all about it, and I just observed it like it was this thing that was actually happening. It was great. It was just something you sat down and you received, and you see the movie. And then I can't remember what changed it necessarily, but it was probably something along the lines of, watching people hit their mark or whatever. And suddenly you see every movie from then on in your life from the perspective of a camera. You're not just an observer in the room anymore. You think in terms of a camera. And the more tips and tricks you learn about how things work in showbiz, you pick up on more things, and it just breaks through all of the illusion.
It does.
It's a horrible thing to do to yourself in some ways, but I like it.
It is, and it isn't. Like, I always like it because now horror movies, I can appreciate the fact that they're scary, but I used to not be a hardcore horror movie person, but now it's sure, whatever, because if it does get a bit intense, I know I'm just going to be like, well, no, that was definitely CG.
Yeah.
But then when you get, it happens very rarely, but when you get the magical movie that affects you in a way, what was the movie called? It had Tom Cruise in it. Justin and I went to go see it in theaters, and I have never been more, it was the most thrilling movie I've seen in a long time. Like, I was on the edge of my seat in the theaters.
I should probably watch whatever this is.
Pardon?
I should probably watch whatever this movie is. I mean, I've talked about it on the podcast, so I'm not going to go into any detail, but I think Sixth Sense was the one that I most recently watched that was like that. It's been a long time, I would say. But even I knew how it ended. Everybody knows how it ends. But just still watching it the way that it was presented to me was fantastic. And maybe I didn't tell it on the podcast, or maybe I did. I don't really know. But I had a coworker who is a 19-year-old at one point, and we were talking about movies, and I told him to go watch it, knowing full well that he knew nothing culturally about it. And he came to work the next day just like, that was fucking amazing. Because he didn't have it ruined for him, and he got to experience something in a bubble.
I love introducing good movies to people like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's called American Made. Came out in 2017.
I'm going to put it in notes on my phone, and then I'm going to look it up in about 6 months and be confused, but then I'll watch it.
It's very good. It's obscenely good. As I said, edge of my seat in the theater, which I never, ever get anymore.
I can't think of the last time other than Sixth Sense.
It gets really intense. He's a it's based on a true story. So Tom Cruise plays a drug smuggler during the kind of cartel days, and when shit gets tough, like I was tense. Like it's a very good movie for that. I enjoyed it, and it's a very rare feeling.
For some reason, about the way you said drug smuggler made me think of a smug juggler, and I'm just wondering if that's a movie.
The Smug Juggler.
The Smug Juggler.
Are there any smug jugglers out there that think they're so pompous? Well, I can juggle.
Well, I think we have a concept for a new movie.
Coming to theaters this fall, The Smug Juggler, starring Tom Cruise.
Smug Juggler is a band.
Aw.
It's always like that, though.
I know.
It's always a band or like a... No, pretty much always a band. If you come up with a weird saying like that.
I was driving today and I got excited because in the back of my head I was thinking smart marketing and then smart kitting, which sounded better in my head.
Smart kitting.
Maybe it was smarketing. I can't remember how it was, but I Googled it when I got to my destination, and of course it was taken. So even if you wanted to combine smart marketing in a smart or dumb way, you can't. It's hard to come up with something.
It's hard to be edgy. Even something as stupid as like a gamer tag, which I'm
the Smug Juggler.
It'd be good for a gamer tag. That's another thing that usually comes up. But I'm terrible at making them, but I usually sit there and I rack my brain and I think of something that's funny or like it's edgy or whatever. And first I was listening to some metal music and Ace of Spades was one of the things I saw, and I'm like, Space of AIDS, punch it in. Fuck, take it.
Band, isn't it? Or gamer tag.
Tag. Yeah.
Space of AIDS.
Space of AIDS. I was like, this is funny and people will understand. Nope. Fuck, somebody already did it. It's hard to be original in a world with 7 billion people.
It is. I find it interesting because I have to watch a ton of bride Facebook groups, and a lot of times women are asking for the opinions of other brides, and they're saying, well, my last name is this. My last name and my fiance's last name is this. Can we come up with a cute hashtag for the wedding where we combine the names?
Probably.
And I'm never good at it.
No.
But I try.
Like it could be.
I really try, but by the time I see them, there's some good ones. Like there are some people where it just must come like, oh, they posted 5 minutes ago. Oh, it's already taken. Yeah. Shit.
Yeah, I kind of like that. I kind of like the wordplay in that way. Although pretty much every time somebody gives me like a
Jesse and Melissa.
Jalissa,
Sounds like a fat black woman.
it is a name already. I'll give you that.
I don't want Jalissa.
Melessi?
That doesn't sound good.
No.
What's your name? I'm Melessi. Yeah, okay. Stay away from my children. Yeah, okay. It's probably a good idea.
Probably.
No, creativity in any form takes skill, and some people just have it. It's intriguing. It's fun. It's cool.
Some people induce it with drugs.
I wonder. I've always wondered. As we've talked about before, like I just, when I was in college, I used to smoke pot, and then I would get in some good writing binges. They were good for just catching up on schoolwork too, for some reason. But I haven't. I don't know. Should just drop acid, see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, you need the tools in front of you if you're going to do that, or else it's probably going to be used somewhere else. Although it's hard to say that that'll be a negative thing at all, anyways. Even the absence of drugs is somewhat different. Like, I don't have the same energy that I normally do, which is, I'm not saying just like hyperness or something, because I feel pretty hyper. I didn't drink I had 1 cup of coffee today, which is different, so you take like 4. I feel in an entirely different mood.
Now, do you normally have a reason for doing things? Was it just you didn't want the 3 extra cups of coffee, or did you decide today, I'm going to have 1?
Sometimes I miss it in the morning, so I don't have time when I'm leaving the house, and then I just get cheap throughout the day. So I bought 1, but I didn't buy another 2 because I didn't want to spend the money. So that was the motivating factor.
That's a good motivating factor.
And it produced a clear, different feeling anyhow. I think I speak differently perhaps when I'm not drinking caffeine, although I still flub words just as much, pretty much.
It happens.
I
don't know.
You said you drink green tea. Do you do that on a frequent basis throughout the day?
I had 1 green tea today. Everybody that brings me tea, unless it's my treat of chai tea with 2 milk and 2 sugars, which I drink that quickly, because something about creamy cold tea doesn't intrigue me. But give me a green tea and I'll drink it throughout the day.
Yeah.
So
if you're not doing it to an extreme, you wouldn't really probably notice much of a difference.
No, I never do.
Doing it to the extreme versus not consuming it at all.
When Justin moved in and first got his gym membership and we were going, he would have the like energy powder type stuff. And one day I tried, but he didn't tell me how to like measure it out. And I measured it out too high.
Yeah.
I felt a difference.
Yeah.
I did not feel good.
Was it primarily caffeine based?
Yes.
Yeah. It'd be too jittery.
I was very jittery. I could feel like I probably could have died that day, maybe. Like I felt it in my heart.
Probably not. It's really hard to overdo caffeine. You could probably drink a good 3 energy drinks and you wouldn't die. You would feel terrible. You would definitely feel terrible.
I am okay with the minor intake of caffeine. I don't know what it is. I always say it's caffeine. Like we were talking about coffee this weekend. I just don't like the taste of coffee. I haven't found the mixture of coffee.
That's like the main thing I like about it. If people get decaffeinated coffee, it's not the same. And it's not because it doesn't have caffeine. I would drink coffee all day long, the whole day throughout the day, if it didn't have any effect. Like if it had 0 caffeine, but it had the same taste. But I think the caffeine taste is part of the addictive attribute it has.
I just don't like coffee. And in general, I find that most of what I do drink either has smaller than average amounts of caffeine. Like most of the time I'm drinking decaffeinated green tea. And then your mother pointed out, hey, you're drinking pop that has caffeine in it. I'm like, yes, I've never been against the caffeine.
Colas don't have that much anyways.
It's just in the conversation of coffee. No, I don't like coffee, and I am not typically a overly caffeinated person. I have been, and I went through my binges of doing it, but no. I wonder if I would accomplish more if I was more caffeinated.
Possibly, and then quit, and then accomplish more that way, and then do flip-flop.
Maybe I should do a test.
So, yeah. It's kind of the thing where people start to fit into the lazy stoner stereotype if they are habitually just using it, and they get to this... They're not getting anything good out of it anymore. And same with even alcohol. Alcohol can be a creative booster in some ways.
Yes.
But if you use it as a crutch, it loses all of its benefits and has too many drawbacks. Even in small amounts, even if you're just having like 1 to 2 drinks while you're at your computer doing some kind of work, it's going to wear off in its effectiveness very quickly.
Probably the second week of the new year, I was here, I was working on stuff, and I didn't have anything in the fridge, and I didn't want to go grab something, but I was thirsty. So I opened up a can of Palm Bay. It was like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I sat at my computer drinking this alcohol thinking, there's a mental block. Like this feels too hobo-like. Drinking in the middle of the day. I don't like this. No. So I put it in the fridge and saved it till after 5. But that was only 3 hours later. So there's a mental stigma.
It's humans do that to themselves a little bit. Unless you are on the road to alcoholism, most people don't consider having a beer at 9 a.m. But, I mean...
Unless you're on vacation or it's a weekend.
Yeah. I can't say I've done that really in any situation other than maybe on vacation we did something once. Maybe in Cuba, the day we had to get through the entire menu of drinks, and we kind of needed to save time at that point. Plus, it's so hot and balmy at like 9 a.m. that it doesn't feel that bad.
If you're going to get a Coke, no, you're going to get a Cuba Libre.
Yeah.
It's just as easy to ask.
It is, and it tastes pretty good. Their Coca-Cola.
I'm glad to say that
good.
I'm not an alcoholic. I like alcohol.
We'll keep in mind we're in our 20s, so there's lots of time to develop a condition.
That's true.
Usually it doesn't kick in just yet unless you've had a very strong drinking teenage set of years, which I don't think any of us had to that kind of extreme where people are just going to parties every weekend and then...
I went to school with people like that.
Oh, yeah. And you crash and burn at some point by this time.
It's sad how stereotypes work like that. Like the popular guy in high school that I know is still back in my hometown, and that's his accomplishment. He's still living. He's Al Bundy. He's living his glory days in high school. And a lot of people have moved away, so those glory days can't be too glorious.
No. Do you have a high school reunion at some point?
I've always got curious about that. Theoretically, if you do 10 years, it should be in 2020. I was never on any planning committee in high school. Hopefully they don't forget about me. That would be insulting. I was fairly memorable.
10 years from your first year or 10 years from your
10 years
graduation?
from the last year. I always thought it was 10 years from the graduation.
2020? You graduated in 2010?
Yeah.
Okay. Makes sense, I guess, time-wise. 2022 for me.
2010 to 2020, I don't know if they do 10-year.
I have no idea.
I don't know.
How do you get
informed
informed about it?
Are
a thing that actually exists? I think they are.
They have to, but I don't know if they do 10 years because what am I have to do a lot in the next year and a half if I want to at least be interesting.
I wouldn't go to it, first off. I don't really care about any of those people at all. But it seems like you have a lot more connections to people from your old town. For me, pretty much the only people that I care about I still talk to, mostly. And by that I mean like at least once a year. At least frequent.
Talk to people I went to high school with, but there's some people that I used to be really good friends with that I just lost connections with. So
I think maybe the only thing I could benefit from it is the people that I casually watch on social media, because there are people that I was maybe mildly friends with in high school.
Likewise.
That over time have gained similar interests. Like say they work on cars and I'm into whatever cars they're working on. I've never said a word to them since high school.
And you were mildly friends with them. So
but I see things that they post like every other day. And I've seen all of it. And it's just weird to have these people that you knew and now you watch and you've never said a word since then. And it's just this, I know so much about you, but you would have no idea.
I cannot confirm this statement because I always forget how big my graduating class was compared to my memory of it, even though it wasn't big compared to regular graduating classes. I am the only one from my grade who tried in limited success to pursue a career in filmmaking. I feel like that is 100% accurate.
Were you the only person? Yeah, you probably would have been. Were you the only person that went to Niagara College from here? Here. No, see, I am the only person that I know of that went to Brock University from my high school.
However, the amount of people that went to Niagara College, like there was one, and he was a year older than me, so it wasn't.
No, it's not really the same year.
Wasn't much. It's interesting. I actually knew people that were 1 or 2 years younger than me that went to Niagara, where it was like, hey, but my year, no, there was none in my year. Not to say they didn't go to the Niagara on the Lake campus, in which case I could be totally wrong. I knew the people on the Welland campus. That was it. And my other statement would be is I think I am the only male that owns a photography company. I had to put the sexism in there, but
Because you know of females that do it?
from my graduating course, yes.
Yeah. That's interesting too, actually, because I think I'm the same way. I think I know women that I graduated with that have a photography business now, but I don't know any men.
But photography isn't feminine. Like I've never understood that.
I don't know. I think it is now more so.
Is it?
Yeah, nowadays. The original photojournalists and a lot of people that were very prominent figures in photography were largely men, although it wasn't as divided as many other professions. There were lots of very successful women photographers back in the 20s and 30s. But I think nowadays, yeah, I think the majority of prominent photographers are probably women. Maybe there's certain social advantages to being a woman that make it a better suited job. I don't know. I don't really know why they've just been more successful at it and more drawn to it, perhaps.
But then you go to the videographer side, and that's a lot of dudes.
Yeah, it is.
Which is interesting.
That's true. The videography side's a lot more men.
I won't give the name because I don't know what I want to do, but I had somebody message me yesterday, and I thought it was fake, but they messaged me by email and on Facebook, and they're a real person. They are a starting out videographer that wants to work a wedding with us for free to just gain experience. And I've never really had somebody ask me if they could. I don't know.
You don't know whether to what to say to them?
Well, I know what I would say, be it yes or no, but I just don't know. They didn't give me much to work off of. I know they're a beginner and they have a Canon T6i.
Doesn't tell you a whole lot about them, but
when I used to apply for stuff, I used to at least give some credentials or something.
Yeah, you would. I think a resume makes sense. They should have probably given that. Even for something you're volunteering to do, it is a bit of a liability, and it's a bit of a thing to get in your way while you're working if you pick the wrong person.
Based on the conversation we just had, and this in no way reflects them as a person, obviously, but they do have something that we've been talking about getting for a while. They're a female videographer.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. We lack a female videographer side.
We do. Well,
at least dedicated.
There's a lot. I think in general there would be a lot, numbers-wise, maybe not like proportionate to men, but there's still probably a lot of female videographers out there to pick from. So don't need to get too desperate.
I was never desperate.
No. Yeah, it's worth. I think it's worth giving people a shot to some extent, as long as they seem reasonably credible.
Maybe I'll set up an interview just to see what they're like.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, it's nice that they... I don't know how many people they messaged. They could have messaged every Niagara videography company.
I think maybe advice to anybody who's trying to do that.
Send a resume.
And you can tell me... Yeah, no, but you can tell me if I'm wrong for thinking this, perhaps. Don't think that you providing free work is the asset that the person you're looking at actually cares about. We don't really need people to do things for us for free. That's not really what we're going to be enticed by. It's more potential to work with that person in the future. Maybe they are a prospective employee. Maybe they have something that we don't. For instance, that they're a one videographer. That's something we don't have. But that's more interesting. Don't overemphasize the fact that I'll do this for free and it's don't worry, you go
free
don't
is
have to
the
pay
asset,
me.
Then
Then
you're
why
not
would we
selling right?
Why would we pay you at any
Right.
point?
So
I wouldn't pitch it.
That's very true. And tell me why they didn't even leave a phone number, so they only want to talk by
Maybe they're really young. I don't know.
Facebook or email. Yeah.
They might not socialize the same way that we would. I feel like I found out the other day that the framing job that I have, I think out of anybody who worked there, I was the only person that ever had a sit down interview and gave like a resume. So maybe somebody else gave a resume, but yeah, I got an interview at a Tim Hortons, but whatever.
Why?
I don't know. Maybe my boss was just a little bit less trusting because he saw on the resume that I had sent him that I had never held a job for more than like 4 months. I mean, some of them I had that were less important, but so they were all summer jobs because I was in university. So he was a bit wary, perhaps. But maybe that's why he asked for it. But everybody else typically it's just been show up, give you a shot. Anybody, doesn't matter what physical shape you're in or whatever, like anything about you. If you want to come do this job, show us what you got. So, and that's it's worked for everybody that's there, basically. No problem about it. Construction's different like that. It's not like Walmart, like, oh yeah, just come by, don't forget the resume, just pop in.
When I was in college, I applied for a job at the Donut Diner. It's still in Welland. And that was when I decided to stay in Niagara over the summer. They told me to come in, so I brought my resume and everything. They looked at my resume. They said, okay, will you step into the kitchen for like an hour? I'm like, today? Okay. And the chef left.
Ooh.
Now,
Not good.
that's a lot of trust, and that's trial by fire.
Too much trust.
The funny thing is back then I wasn't a breakfast connoisseur. So flipping over multiple eggs and whatnot, I didn't get that skill till I went through A&W the second time. I have made picture perfect sunny side up over easy eggs and whatnot, but back then, no, not so much. So I fucked up pretty hardcore because people kept ordering just a ton of stuff. Yeah, I didn't get the job. So that was an interesting way of doing it, but that at the end of the day isn't good for business if you just have a person who
No, not good for their business.
no. But
Did they pay you for the hour?
no,
Oh,
which makes it even worse and more sketchy.
pretty bad. Usually,
I didn't even get food.
the industry protocol for the construction thing where they just get people to come in is if you don't like them after day 2, 3, whatever, cash, goodbye. That's it. And then there is no employment record of said person. It's not like and of course that implies that if they of course go on to pay their taxes later, but they're never to be seen again. Yeah.
Guess that's a good way of doing it.
Well, yeah, because at least the person gets paid. Otherwise, it's kind of sketchy. But of course, setting up payroll is an expensive,
Yes, it
annoying
is.
process.
Do you get direct deposit?
I do.
Okay,
That's how I
so-
get paid. I think that's most. There's people that have complaints. Have you typically been paid bi-weekly, weekly, monthly?
In every job that I've held down or that I've had outside of the 2 days for the film union stuff, it's been bi-weekly.
Yep, that's the most common way to get paid. Although I have had jobs that were paid weekly, and I've had jobs that paid monthly, I believe. Although I can't come to think of them right now, but I think I found some earlier. But anyways, it's the most common one. But there's always people who complain that
Why?
it's not. It's always that it's not frequent enough bi-weekly. They want to
Every 14 days is pretty quick.
Yeah. But they just complain that it's not frequent enough.
Yeah, but then if you got paid weekly, they'd be like, well, it's never enough money.
Yeah. It doesn't... It's essentially just the sign of a person that doesn't budget ahead. They're sort of living paycheck to paycheck. And then there's the cynicism that's involved with that where because they're living paycheck to paycheck, they just blow any extra money because they don't feel like they're ever going to save money. It's a self-defeating loop. I've never had it, but I have had people explain it to me. I don't know. It sounds terrible, and people tend to blame others for that, I guess, and just blaming the bi-weekly payment system is a thing they do. And I defended it to this person that I'm thinking of.
Is it a close person?
Yeah, I guess. But I defended it because I thought I called them selfish. I knew that would piss them off. I like to push buttons sometimes. But
I know.
But because they weren't thinking for a second about anything else. We're just saying, I need this money this time. And sure, that's maybe true. Maybe you need that money at a certain schedule, whatever. And he was saying, why do we do this? Who invented the bi-weekly payment system? Like, why is it this way? And I was trying to think of ideas. I don't really know for sure because I've never managed payroll or anything like that. But I imagine if you're doing payroll through, say, one of the aggregators, someone like ADP that will do all the taxes and deductions, all the things like that, there probably is fees associated with using that system for an employer. I would
Probably.
They don't do it for free.
Likely,
I don't think
yeah.
so. And you'd think that if you are creating pay stubs twice as often, you're doing all these things twice as often, there's got to be something that's more costly about it, or at least more complicated, because as an employer, you're now entering hours and tallying up things every week instead of every 2 weeks. So it's literally twice as much work for an employer.
The payroll job, when you're calculating hours on a 2-week basis, you're doing the job of 2 weeks. If you did it weekly, the counting of hours, even though that most workplaces now are computerized for the most part.
I'm still in the analog world for what I do.
It doesn't take that much to calculate up 40 hours versus 80 hours. But sitting down and doing it,
it's the entering into the system kind of thing.
But
and I don't know if this is the standard way to do it, but it kind of lessens the time, I think. Save stuff like overtime. It's only ever calculated on a 2 weeks basis. If you worked like ridiculous hours and got like 60 hours, say you got 60 hours in 1 week, but then you just worked like another 28 and you got just straight 88 hours for 2 weeks, you wouldn't be paid any overtime. Which I don't know if that's right or if that's the way everybody does it, but that's just how we do it. Which simplifies it, because then you're not dealing with when the hours occurred, you're just dealing with the hours within said pay period.
I do not know why it's only a bi-weekly basis. Outside it, I mean, it could also be possibly that there are a lot of terms that come up on at least on the monthly basis. You know that most people the first of the month have bills that come out, so do it monthly. That would cover. I don't know. I'm just rambling. I don't know why it is. I've never.
It's typical. If it's a payroll job, it's biweekly. If it's you're a contractor, it's cash or check or whatever. It's on the spot payment, or it gets mailed out, depending on what you're doing and how big of a scale it is. And if it's, say, you're a landlord, it's monthly, which is how you would get paid in that instance. But those are the most common ways to get paid, I would imagine.
Well, commission would also be dependent on.
Isn't commission usually added to a check at some point?
Real estate agents would be 100% commission.
Yes.
So I don't know if if you sell a house on the first of the month, which would be an odd time to sell a house, I assume. I don't know if you'd have to wait till the 14th or if if it goes into a pay period or.
Luckily, I know a bunch of real estate agents, so I could ask them. Maybe I will.
It's an interesting
question. Ask them, how do you get paid?
I don't know. I have never once thought, life would be so much better if I got paid every week.
it's funny because my certain things will happen where certain paychecks are bad, or my boss will owe me money because I went to the store and I bought something for him out of my own pocket because he was out of town and he had to go do something, whatever, some weird circumstance in which he owes me money. I'm never urgently asking for it. He will typically ask other people, like, do you need it today? Do you need when? Like, he'll be very accommodating with that kind of stuff. Relax. I don't care. He'd be like, do you need it like now? I'll be like, no, wait till paycheck. I don't care. Kind of delayed. It makes no difference when I get it because I feel like I'm budgeted far enough in the future that it's irrelevant.
Yeah, that's fair. Budgeting is very important. People have issues with budgeting, and it's not complicated as long as you are kind of strict enough to follow it.
Yeah.
Like, you can have the tightest budget in the world that shows that you're saving 60% of your income. But if you don't follow that budget, then it's not going to work.
I'm really good at following it. The issue is lots of expenses have come up since owning a house and buying vehicles and doing lots of things like that. And since I would say about August, that's when it started kicking into high gear. And keep in mind, like, I've bought 2 vehicles within a span of like 8 months. There's tons of things that I've spent money on. I've gotten to the point where I've never had credit card debt in my life before that, but now I'm budgeting the same way, but I have credit card debt, and I have to now pay it off. But at the same time, it's still not as much of a threat. It's just I have to deal with interest charges, which is a pain in the ass. But it's pretty much exactly the same as it was before. It's just that there's now something to pay off that I did not have before.
It happens.
So money that could have been saved is going to pay debt.
It's hard to say what there is no perfect answer. There is no perfect solution to everybody's financial problems. Some people just straight up don't have the income to save for the future. Some people are really tight. Some people have a good income, but they're horrible at spending.
Yeah.
So there's no master plan.
It tends to scale a little bit with how much you make. You're just going to end up spending more for most people, but it is poor impulse control. I don't know if there's an amount of money that people make that makes it impossible to save. It really is how cheap are you willing to be at the end of the day. Like, I mean, when I was a university student, I look back, I was cheap.
So
like,
was I.
I literally fucking...
People still call me cheap. Everybody calls me cheap, and I'm not.
Well, you spend lots of money on things. It's relative, I guess. But like, think about this. When I went to apply to the photography job that you were offering, I literally fucking biked to a job interview because I didn't want to spend the gas money. I wasn't worried about being on time. I had all the time in the world because I would budget things. That way I spend the least amount of money on absolutely everything. And mind you, that was biking from Thorold till like halfway in St. Catharines. It was not super close or anything like that. I would do that.
It worked out okay for you.
Yeah, it did.
For one, I'm glad.
I didn't spend anything back then. It's ridiculous. I would be hard on myself for spending like $7 on lunch one day. That was a no-no. You don't spend money on like food when you're out. Like, I wouldn't do it. Half the time.
That's the student life.
Yeah.
And
it just seemed natural though back then. I would never want to do that again. It seems unreasonable. I've gotten used to such a nicer situation.
Yeah.
Although it's funny too, because I do see a lot of stuff beyond what I'm currently spending is very superfluous. Like, I can't see wasting money to the extent that I see many other people wasting it. A lot of people, buying scratch tickets and
Never.
I don't know. They have a vice like cigarettes or something.
That was always the fun time in college, when the OSAP payments came in, and how so many different people would spend that money because it's not supposed to go to that really big trip to the LCBO.
No. If you did that once, you'd be fine, right? But people do it often and they blow all of the money. It's very easy to blow, usually maybe $3,000 left spending money after school's paid for and all the other stuff for 4 months. $3,000. It's a decent amount of money. I think your rent has to come out of that too, but you can usually get rent for pretty cheap. I was really good at saving it, and I had like a savings account by the time I was done university of just all the extra OSAP money that I didn't end up spending. Out of that, I was actually able to buy my first camera, and it was a startup thing. And also, I also had a period of like basically almost homelessness at the end of it because I got cut off of OSAP when I shouldn't have been, and there was a whole mix-up.
I remember.
Yes, and then I drained that amount of money very quickly because it was there, luckily, but it was just enough to survive for a couple months without any government funding for my university program at all. I had to pay for the tuition, I had to pay for living expenses and that kind of stuff.
Back then was interesting. There's one moment I remember where we both met up at Teela's apartment, and she was doing one of the Facebook Live cooking videos. So I went live on Facebook with you beside me, and we went live.
I remember that.
Breaking into her live video.
Yep. That was funny. I wonder if those are still up there somewhere.
Possibly.
I don't know what happens with the Facebook Live stuff, if it's permanent. Or
I don't know.
Or if it's
stuff like that. That's fun. It's amazing to think that we'll only be coming up on kind of 3 years of knowing you.
Yeah, I guess whatever this
would have been like March 2016 ish.
That was a warm March when we met because I biked. It was a very warm March.
With you and your beard and your tablet with all the samples.
Yeah, that was a convenient way to show a portfolio back then. I guess a lot of people probably didn't have anything to show when they showed up for the interview. If you were in a similar situation where you were trying to get a photography job.
Well, the only other person that we ever interviewed was that
person that wanted a lot of money and all
the woman at Coffee Culture.
Yeah,
that wanted
tons of money and all the rights to the photos. And
3 times the amount of money on an hourly rate.
People that want to get paid like they're in the business for themselves are a little bit full of themselves. Like somebody who owns their own company can pay themselves, let's just say doing construction stuff, maybe they pay themselves $80 an hour. You go ask anybody else for a job and you want $80 an hour doing, I don't care what it is, starting out, you're not going to get it probably.
No.
Maybe there's some exceptions, but it's different. It is very different. I don't know where maybe she got the idea in her head that she was worth that amount of money, but maybe she did do business for herself beforehand. I don't really know. And maybe she could have made that amount of money by herself.
Whatever, her demo reel, like that, in comparison to the person that asked for the free shot, that she had a demo reel so you could see how much she was worth. And she could have been a good part of the team, but she still had learning to do. So she was willing to take a few weddings at a more than fair, but less than full price rate. It's a skill. We've always paid above minimum wage. It could have worked out, but as soon as I realized that she wanted around $75 an hour to do it, and then still retain all the copyright to the footage that she has shot and other stuff, yeah, that was a hard no. And then when I went to talk to her on the phone and said, you didn't get it, I was going to say if you could do it for these terms, but she went off on me, so that was a hard no. She wasn't nice.
No. A lot of photographers are very snooty.
I suppose I did interview Josie. Hi, Josie. Bring her up.
You interviewed her much prior to that because she had worked with you.
I interviewed her in the summer of 2015. And I met her at Lester D's, actually. The interview was fine. I explained everything. At the time, it was good. She filled in a void that I needed filled. And then she kind of stopped being useful.
Sounds like a mob
Well,
phrasing, like, stop
yeah, I
being-
realized as soon as I said that, but no. I mean, basically everybody now has lucked out, even if they don't work. If they outlast their usefulness, we'll still be friends. But she and I were never friends. So once she decided to steal all the photos, post her own website, and then kind of go crazy like we saw.
I hope she watches these at some point, because
I wonder. This is the first time I've actually mentioned her by name. When things start happening again.
ooh, that'd be cool. Not really. She was crazy. We should probably call the police about a stalker. But that's
It
that's
did
another
get
story.
to be a bit much.
I guess we can tell a story about it, 'cause we should have a record of it at least, some kind of.
that's true.
record.
If I ever end up dead,
Yes, there's a person named Josie who
won't
was.
mention the last name.
No, of course not. There's a person named Josie who was an ex.
She worked a few weddings for
Contractor.
me, performed adequate at best, mediocre on average, but she got the job done, which is what I needed at that point. I had a photographer drop out because she and I weren't dating anymore, so I needed to fill in a replacement. She took all the photos she took for me, posted on the website, started posting basically on every platform that I was, but didn't differentiate the fact that she was her own thing. Like, I'd post certain photos and she'd post basically the same ones. So I said, no, like, that's not going to happen. And I did threaten, like, I wrote a good letter. I told her, legally to fuck off, and she backed down, and I thought she went away. But she didn't.
No, she did not.
We'd occasionally get messages. Justin got messages. She continued her own company for quite a while, and she obviously ran into some issues with staffing and whatnot, because she tried to
Hire Justin
and you too.
and me, yeah.
Yeah.
Although it was a very weird situation, because she got phone numbers for all of us. I mean, mine certainly never would have been given to her personally at any point, but she got it somehow. She had a rough idea of who I was.
Did you have business cards circulating at that point?
Probably did, but I don't know who I would have given them to that would have got it to her. There's no sensible link to how she found out about me. But it got weirder, because she would ask for us to do certain work or whatever in a weird way. But then you get to the point where it's this. I remember it being seeming
She
like
kept calling me a fat loser.
that too, and she would like get on these like probably coke fueled type binges, whether there was drugs involved or not. But like, she would be out of her mind at like unreasonable hours of the morning, messaging us. And I don't really remember saying anything back to her at first, and I would just get streams of messages without ever indicating once that I had this phone number and could respond. But she kept going. It got weirder from there, though. She started showing up. We never saw her in person. I've never seen her face or none of that. But
It's the coffee culture.
she would pay attention to where we were and say, I see so-and-so license plate out front of this. And be like, okay, yes, that's Jesse's license plate, and it is where she says it is. Okay, so she knows where we are. And it would progress, and we started trying to mess with her a little bit, and we wanted to sort of get her to come out to talk. And we did sort of a little stakeout thing where Jesse and Teela went to Coffee Culture, where they said they were going to meet, and I just, after planning, talking in an apartment, I went to a parking garage where I could overlook it just to see what was going on, where she was, because I didn't think she was going to show up. She knew where I was. She pretty much must have heard the entire plan, because she knew what was going on. She bailed. But then you thought, okay, fine. Maybe she just waited outside and she looked where I went and she followed me. So then that makes some sense. And then beyond that, it got weirder because, like, even in your own apartment, we would be having conversations about things, and she would message us with things relating to the conversations we were having. Like, she could hear us, and she was in some other room in this apartment, or she had some kind of wire or something. And it was just too creepy to be a coincidence. And even a time I was in a Home Depot once with Teela. No, just with Teela. And Teela and I are having a conversation about something. And hours later when we were back, and I think we were here, we were doing something with like cutting up wood for a wedding show. She messaged relevant to what Teela and I were having a conversation about in Home Depot by ourselves. No phones around us except for what was, I guess in our pocket, but nobody was with us having a conversation like that. There was no indication as to how she could have heard that. It was very creepy.
And she tried to blackmail. She said that I hit on her legally aged daughter.
Strange thing.
And then sent us.
Strange thing to blackmail about. Yeah.
Then sent. Either it was myself. I don't know who she sent, but she sent. Very clearly not me dick pics.
Oh, because she was trying to say that she had pictures of you naked, which, again, how would she have even gotten
the
such
inherent
things?
problem with that is the photos were uncircumcised, so I clearly had proof.
Unless you had just recently gotten circumcised.
So it was an interesting go. She tried to convince Justin for quite an apparent large sum of money.
She didn't have that money.
No.
No.
And then always with a case of beer.
Yep. Wow, it's Justin. Budweiser.
A hidden dark spot on the history of DH Media. She doesn't get brought up too often.
And it all went away because you and I, nobody else was around, having a conversation about maybe we should get the police involved about this. And she overheard it somewhere in this apartment.
Not this apartment.
Wow. In this building. She overheard what we were saying somehow. I don't know where she was. She wasn't in the hallway because we fucking looked. And she said, okay, that's enough. Like, don't do that. Goodbye. And never another word. That was the end of that. That was long. That went over the course of at least a month or two.
It was probably more drawn out because she'd come back occasionally with just random text messages. Yeah. I wish Justin was here to make a cameo because he got a ton of them too.
Yeah, he would have something to say about it. The one time that Justin is gone for a prolonged period of time.
I know. He doesn't get his cameo credit this week.
No.
No, I definitely know how to pick them. She was an interesting lady. But I didn't know at the time. The interview went well. She understood the terms of the contract and everything, so it all seemed to be fine.
After all that, I don't have a problem with her. I would like to know. I'm curious as to how she did what she did, but I don't actually care that much.
I know her husband's in computing, so
let's go.
Maybe he's very good.
Maybe he is extremely good.
But
picking up on our microphones.
Hi, Josie.
Hello.
Come talk to us.
If you're watching us here, it doesn't take much skill to get this, but yeah.
Come play with us, Josie.
Should we have her on the podcast? Wouldn't that be something? You look nervous.
Well, I mean, right off the bat, it would only be interesting if she said yes to everything. Like, yes, I did that. Yes, I did that.
Yeah,
it would just be a big deny fest. Mm-hmm. And if she said yes, then she's committing, or like she's admitting to
fraud.
Like,
because she tried to blackmail you.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's not good.
She's kind of fallen off the face of the earth, too. Maybe she's in jail.
Maybe she was having coke-fueled binges.
Maybe. I don't know. It's an interesting one. It'll be one for the biography at some point. But for now, it's just it's a interesting story.
Not so distant memory.
No, because that would have been 2017. So that would have been just 2 years ago.
Yeah. I think we could have a slightly shorter podcast than usual.
How long was it?
Only about an hour and 10 minutes.
Wow, you know what? We've been averaging about an hour and 20, so it's not that bad.
Well, Have a good night, everybody.
Yeah, have a good night. Bye, Josie.